Please welcome Vice President, Professional Services, AWS, Todd Weatherby.
Wow, hello everybody. Thank you for that nice welcome. Boy, it is great to see you all here. It's great to be together, isn't it? We've talked about that. Todd Weatherby, I lead professional services for AWS. I've been with the company for 10 years now. And of course, you've heard that this is our 10th reInvent for AWS. We're glad that you prioritized it, your time and effort to get here. We're very grateful that you're investing here with us to learn through this conference. This reInvent conference has always been about learning. Has always been about discovery and connecting and networking to help you achieve your outcomes faster. So that's still the case, and we're excited about this week. It does feel the same in many ways, but it feels a little bit special this time too. So thank you again for making the effort. In my role in professional services, we get to see across the entire AWS customer base, and we get to look for the patterns and practices that lead to great results in a short period of time, and also those patterns and practices that generate challenges or even stalls in the enterprise reinvention or enterprise innovation. This session, we're going to talk about the foundation for enterprise reinvention here as part of the reInvent conference. This session is one of 22, I think, in the leadership track, and I encourage you to consider the content here in this session as a bit of a guide to several other sessions that are following, and also connect the dots with the sessions that have happened earlier today. There are some patterns and practices that we believe you can take away today and some resources to go with it that'll help you lead more effectively in the future, get to your outcomes more quickly. We've got about 55 minutes or so. Looking forward to walking through it together. I'm going to set up the opportunity that you have, the patterns we're seeing, and then you're also going to get to hear from enterprise leaders like yourselves. We're going to have them on video. We're not going to be able to have them here in person. But what I like about the video format is we're going to get several stories locked in here today. We're going to get a chance to sort of take a look at what they said and some of the key points, those key success factors that they're paying attention to, and the kind of results they're getting to so very quickly. All of them are making great speed right now. So let's look at how we're going to spend the time. First, we're going to look at the opportunity and find those patterns. I'll be referring to them as key success factors or critical success factors. And we're going to then hear from these leaders across multiple industries, multiple roles, and multiple scenarios that are pressuring them to make changes quickly. We're going to also make sure that you get some resources to take away, to share with your teams, use for yourself as you lead, as you look to pick up speed in your journey. So I'm looking forward to laying out the situation for you and then helping you connect the dots with a bunch of other things going on here at the conference. What we're not going to do in this session is I'm not here selling you professional services. I'm not here selling you any AWS products. In fact, I think there are no mentions of any AWS web services in the presentation at all. This is a leadership track. This is a leadership session. And we're going to hear from peers of yours, leaders like you, who are making great progress. And this is how we're going to do it. First, I want to talk about the situation, the opportunity a little bit. I'm going to cite a couple of studies to sort of frame the situation. Studies that are listed here are from McKinsey and Forbes, and they're a little bit dated. They're 2017, 2018. Imagine that. There hasn't been a lot of research done in this area in the last couple of years. Things have been a little different. But what this says is that back in that time, 2018, 9 out of 10 business leaders understood that technology now is front and center. It's not just a cost. It's not just an IT thing. It is actually how you differentiate, how you create innovation, create new capability, new value for your customers, value for your business. So that's known. The stat in the middle says that even in 2018, there's this notion of a digital transformation strategy, digital innovation opportunity, and that 70% of enterprises had what they felt was a pretty cohesive and complete, comprehensive strategy for going after this opportunity. Well then, the stat on the right here says, but only 1 out of 6 had really gotten into action, gotten from strategy to execution. I don't know about you, I know that in business, oftentimes all the big ideas are great, but a lot of the skill, a lot of the challenges, how do we get to execution and start laying down tracks on our way to that big outcome that we're after? These studies are a little bit dated, admittedly, but we've found another one for you that is from Harvard Business Review. And what they're saying is even late this year, so late 2021, HBR says that still 78% of these digital transformation efforts are either struggling, stalling altogether, or are coming undone. And so it's still a challenge to get from that great vision, great idea at the top of the company perhaps, or great ideas from developers, and get the whole organization all the way up through the middle, out into the business, get everybody going in the same direction to take advantage of this awesome opportunity that's there. It doesn't have to be that challenging. In fact, today the stories you're going to hear from people who were started back in this time frame, but are making great progress now. And the way they got down the path most quickly, they're going to share with you the how of it, not just the what and the why, but the how part, which is what we think you're looking to understand as you consider the leadership track and learning this week. It's the how part that really makes the difference. So let's frame it a little differently. On the lower left of this illustration is sort of the status quo. It's your current business model, it's your current goals, and your current use of technology in that business. In the upper right is the desired state. It's the leadership opportunity you have, where it's differentiation in your business. It's new capabilities. It's new value for your customers and your business. So how do you get from where you are today on up to that desired state, where you not only survive current business conditions, but you thrive, you lead, you become the winner in the next generation, the next 10, 20, 30 years. It's easy to look back and say that there are companies that have reinvented many times, but it's not easy, and you got to keep doing it to keep in that leadership position. So as we looked across the thousands of engagements, thousands of enterprise customers that we work with, we've done this over the last few months and gathered a set of stories today that are a pretty wide variety in some ways, pretty different in many ways, but very common in these four key areas in the middle. So on this illustration, I'm showing you there's a red section in the middle, which are these four critical success factors that we're going to use the rest of this session to frame up your opportunity and to frame up those keys for success so that you can help lead more effectively and get down the path to your desired business outcomes more quickly. So let's start in the top center of that red area. First one says align leadership vision and goals. And you might say, yeah, of course we need to do that. But I want to share with you that when we're looking across all the engagements we can see in all industries, all markets, all levels of maturity, what we're finding is that the ones that are struggling quite often have this characteristic. They didn't define a target business outcome in business terms. They didn't get the senior leadership on board and focused across the whole business. Maybe it was just IT, or maybe it was just a business unit that wanted to go fast and go first. But they didn't get enough of the leadership team across to include procurement, legal, finance, supporting business functions, as well as the line of business, as well as the C-suite, the CXOs across the board. When there is a clear focus on a compelling business goal in business terms, and when there is good alignment with the leadership team, we see great speed, great progress, great focus. What it inoculates you against is the idea of losing focus. It keeps you on that focused, compelling outcome in a way that it stays a high priority. Let me give you an example. One of my favorites, Volkswagen, one of the largest automotive makers in the world, has stated publicly their target business outcome in very clear business terms. How did they do it? They said they want to take 30% out of the cost in their supply chain in 5 years. So they put it in very much business terms. They didn't say, well, let's move some servers and data into the cloud. That's a technical activity. It's part of how you get there. What they said is, we're going to do this business outcome on this calendar by this time. And what it's allowed them to do is to stay focused. It's kept it as a high priority. Leaders have changed. Other emerging needs have come up. The existing business had to be serviced. But they've kept their eye on the ball on this business outcome. It's very compelling, and it works across all their business units. Everyone can connect to it. Everyone can show how they're contributing to it. And they would say they're not executing perfectly, but they are making progress, and they're sustaining their progress against all kinds of side winds and distractions. They're keeping their focus. So that's the first one. Clear, compelling goals in business outcome terms, and then getting that leadership alignment. The second one is just below that, around prioritizing people and a learning culture. In fact, that was hit on very well by the team that was just up here. My friend and colleague, Maureen Lonergan, and her team showed you a lot of what's going on across the people and change management and skills development, career development, and so forth. How many of you were here for that session just prior to this one? Okay, maybe half. I encourage you to take a look at that session. It is one of the 4 keys to success. When we get our CXOs who are down the path the farthest, and we ask them to look back, what they almost all tell us is they wish they had gone after the people part of this more intentionally, more proactively, and earlier. They wish they'd have known who was going to come with them. They wish they'd have known who was going to struggle, where they had to help them. They wish they'd have gone after skills development, career development, sourcing talent differently, looking at different ways to retain the talent, different ways to create a climate in which that talent can thrive and love working there, where it's a great place to be, known for thought leadership, known for innovation, known for speed. And that's what's going to differentiate winning and losing businesses, is to be able to attract and retain that talent in that kind of environment. So again, feels a little cliche, feels a little standard, but I'll tell you what, when we look at those that struggle or stall, when we go back and we say, well, how did they approach the people part of this? Almost every time they're struggling on that. They weren't intentional about it, weren't proactive about it. And so I'd encourage you to consult with your HR pros in your business and to work maybe with consultants or others who think with you about change management for your team and your organizations. And then think about it across your business and all the different roles and functions that are impacted by this change, by this opportunity. So that's 2 out of 4 in the middle there. Let's go to the third one in the red area. It's a little bit right center, and it says innovate, migrate, and modernize. The reason that's there is because I've seen a lot of debate about should we modernize first and then move it all to the cloud? Because what's the point of going to the cloud unless it's in a new modern architecture? Reasonable argument. But what we found is there's a stall that happens there quite often because you open up the box to go modernize the stack and feature creep comes in, there's all these things you needed to do, and you don't actually get moved. So watch out for that one. You don't necessarily need to get everything modernized before you move. The other one is people say, well, let's move it over there and then we'll modernize over time. Well, sometimes you can get that move, you get some benefits, but modernizing over time sometimes doesn't happen. There's a little bit of a we'll never get to it kind of concern. And then there's another third ingredient in this one which says, don't forget to take advantage of this environment you have in the cloud that doesn't have the constraints of your legacy environments. You get a chance to say yes more often now to the business, and you get a chance to go fast at a lower cost, higher security, and you get a chance to add innovation into the mix. So my recommendation there would be to say that our customers who get the most progress in the shortest amount of time have a very deliberate control of that mix. How much are we doing that's brand new? How much are we doing that we're migrating and modernizing slowly? How much of it are we really attacking the stack and pulling it apart and re-architecting and modernizing aggressively? But what's the mix there? And how much do we like that mix? And is it getting us to our business outcomes quickly? Be very intentional about your scope creep in that mix because it can get out of hand on one dimension or the other. So that's number 3. I told you there were 4 in this red box. The 4th one is probably the newest one that we've seen as a pattern in the last few years. And this one says drive operational excellence with a cloud operating model. So what's an operating model? Well, it means a little different to everybody, but operating model is policies, process, governance, management, people. It's how do you run the business once you've moved these assets, your software, your data, you've moved it all. You've even perhaps decommissioned a lot of the legacy assets, but now how do you operate this? It's different. It is this shared responsibility model where you've got assets that sit in the cloud with your cloud provider, and you've got assets and people and processes that run in your legacy environments that run within your business. How do you manage that? In fact, how do you manage that while you're partway across the journey? When you have the legacy business running the way it did, and now you've got a new part of the business running in perhaps a very different way. So this whole focus on the cloud operating model and bringing everybody that has an operational role into the process to teach them what the impact of cloud is on their part of the operating model is super critical. And we're seeing this more and more, and we're putting together assets and services and tools to help you there. This is an example where I'd like to direct you to a session that's happening later this week. I'm pretty sure it's Thursday, and it's one of our engineering leaders, Bill Vass, is going to talk about operations in the cloud. I think it's entitled Ready, Set, Operate or something like that. And I believe it's Thursday. Bill Vass, and he's going to talk about some of the things that are coming out there as this pattern is emerging, we're finding that if you wait and address this later, it's a possible stall or possible distraction or challenge for you that you can head off if you pull those folks in earlier. And I believe it's a big important key in this new approach to using technology in the business. So patterns, keys to success. Here they are, the big four. So now let's take a look at some actual stories from industry. I told you we went out and looked across the business. We looked across all of our engagements and customers for those patterns. And we picked some leaders that have some variety, a variety of industries, and a variety of business models and imperatives. So I need to get to the next slide so we can look at these enterprises that we're going to feature today. There it goes. So you'll recognize these names, I'm pretty sure. These companies have some things in common. Many of them established, all of them, very established brands, successful businesses in their own right, innovators and reinventors in their own way, multinational. They're from a variety of industries also. So there are a number of things going on there, but they've each got a different challenge. And our aim in picking these stories, it's a little bit ambitious, but I was hoping with a crowd like this that we might be able to give you a story from a leader like you, and a story that you can relate to that's relevant, that you can take home, just one part of it that's useful next week with your team. And that's why we picked some variety here. I don't know if we'll get to all of you in the audience today, but that was our aim, is to give you some stories that are making this move for different reasons, focusing on reinvention as a common approach, but for different reasons. Cisco, classically a hardware product company that sold through a channel, didn't work with customers directly. You're going to hear about their customer experience initiative. 3M, that's a great company that you may know as a consumer of the Post-it notes or sticky notes. The reinvention for them isn't just making different colored Post-it notes. The reinvention for them is looking at their product catalog and their customer base and figuring out how that mix is going to change going forward. Did you know that 3M is 109 years old? I didn't know that. Did you know that 3M's product catalog, guess a number in your head, you don't have to shout it out right now. I failed this quiz, 60,000 products in their catalog. So 109 years, they've had a chance to reinvent many times. They were originally the Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Company. Now they're in a bunch of products, 60,000 of them that have nothing to do with mining or many not to do with manufacturing. So they've obviously reinvented along the way, and that's a cool story that you're going to hear as well. BMW, automotive. Boy, there's some pressure on that industry to innovate and reinvent now, isn't there? Every year there's a model year, of course, and every year a company like BMW has to be innovative in their design and their manufacturing and their customer experience. So that's not new for them. But what is new in automotive, wow, look at it. You got insurgents that are doing electrification of vehicles for consumer and fleet operations. You've got the telemetry coming off of connected vehicles. You've got a bunch of data you can work with there. You've got the assisted driving, the automated assisted driving services that are coming out. You've got all kinds of things that are going on in the front end of that business in automotive. And I've already talked about what Volkswagen's thinking about on the back end, the supply chain part of their business. So you're going to hear a great story from BMW about how, again, a storied company, great brand, a great reputation as an innovator, but how are they thinking about reinvention? What's their need, urgent need, and what's their opportunity? Autodesk, maybe a little less familiar to some of you, but Autodesk is a company that is traditionally a desktop and on-prem software company. They make software for designers and engineers. These designers make a variety of products across a number of industries, and they're going to tell you about that. But what they're doing is going from a product company to more of a platform company. They're going from desktop software products to software as a service in the cloud model. How do you do that? That's a big leap for them. So I'd suggest to you that each of these well-known companies, very successful in their own right, sees a need to and an opportunity to reinvent, so they do emerge as that leader, that differentiated value creator, who is also a great place to work, and who ends up being the leader in the next generation. I think you're going to love these stories. I did want to share a little bit of a preview that in past years, I've included a little story about reinvention from Amazon. And when I've done this session here every year, I've tried to include something that, and it's always gotten great feedback. So there is a fifth story about some reinvention going on at Amazon that I'll add in there too. And I'll just give you a phrase to think about: autonomous retailing. So we'll come back to that story in a minute, but let's look at these AWS reinventors, AWS innovators, and let's start with Autodesk. We're going to hear from Susanna Holt. Susanna's the VP of Strategic Technologies at Autodesk, and I really like the way she lays out the story. She talks about getting from product to platform company. She talks about setting a good, clear set of goals and getting that leadership alignment. And then she talks about how much progress they're making and how enthusiastic their teams have become. Let's go ahead and roll a video from Susanna and have her tell you in her own words, because she's doing the role, she's done the work, and has a great way of talking about it. Susanna?
So Autodesk is transforming from a product to a platform company, along with the shift from desktop and on-prem to cloud. And we're making changes to allow our customers to do more with our tools and technical abilities by giving them better and more convenient access. And that's going to allow our customers to innovate and to improve their experience. And as we make these changes, our minds are really focused on data privacy and security. Because Autodesk products, they're used by designers and makers to create greener buildings, smarter products, and compelling movies and games. And these innovators need automated workflows to do more with less. They need insights to make more choices. They need seamless collaboration from the design studio to the shop floor and beyond. And they need for everyone to be working with one vision and one source of truth in their data. For us, the move from desktop and on-prem to cloud, it took place in multiple ways. So we recruited people with the right skills, we made heavy use of AWS training and certifications, and a lot of people from our engineering community attended re:Invent. I'm also a strong believer in cross-training, as I really like the rigor of our desktop engineering community, and I like it when they bring that to work in the cloud. But we did more. We also ran a company-wide initiative, initially staying away from mandates, particularly as we were still learning ourselves. And the effect of a mandate that isn't well thought out can be quite detrimental to morale. So we just started by firming things up, some very basic requirements as we went along and as we learned. Getting everyone working together towards a common goal, it's hard, but it's the job. This kind of change, it has to be led from the top with clear direction. And in addition to that, it's really important to inspire the engineering community. And for us, some of that inspiration came from what the cloud can do for our users, for our customers. And some of that came from the excitement of acquiring new skills. There were certainly challenges in leadership engagement. And I think that's natural. There's just this natural tension between investing in something new and supporting the existing business. And we can't just do one. And that tension certainly has the potential to block engagement. But it is a healthy tension. And without that tension, we would probably not be taking enough risk. The way to move forward is having open and frank conversations that resolve the tension and then make the right business decision from there. And I think we're doing a good job. It's not easy, but we're doing it. We had the luxury of being able to start talking about the cloud a very long time before most people were affected. And what that allowed us in terms of leadership and preparing the team was to identify the people and the teams who were naturally enthusiastic, and to get those people and teams engaged in POCs. And with those in hand, then the next step of evangelizing, it suddenly became much easier because we had something to show for it. And once we reached a tipping point of about 50% of the company being on board, after that, everything became a lot easier.
Let's give Susanna a round of applause there. All right. Thanks, Susanna and the Autodesk team. I really loved that part at the end where she said we got that enthusiasm into those teams at over 50%, and it was a tipping point for us, and it got so much easier. I thought that was a great way to think about that, the people side of the business. But also, did you catch that part that she talked about the leadership alignment? This requires top-down, she said, in order to make a change like that for her business, to reinvent their business in such a substantial way, to get to the great market position and opportunity they wanted. They have to really go after it as a whole leadership team and have strong alignment. They have to deal with the competing priorities that she called tension, but she talked about the importance of that leadership that was then inspiring to the engineers who got that enthusiasm, who reached that tipping point. They're yet ready to report the actual business outcomes that they've achieved, but they're in a great position against the goals that they've set that are here on the slide. And I think by covering those 4 key success factors in the way that they are, Susanna and the team are going to make great progress and get to those results very quickly. So thanks to the team at Autodesk. Let's look at our second story. Second one here is with BMW. Talked about the pressures in the automotive industry, and we're going to hear from Josef Wiehauser. Josef is the program owner of the Cloud Data Hub for BMW Group. So the group in their organization, their corporate structure, is the corporate wide view. It's the global look at their business. They're a multinational company. We work with them in Europe, Asia, and the Americas, do a lot with them in China. And so there's a lot going on across BMW. But what Josef's going to talk about is this notion of how they got after a builder's mentality using data, how they are using the cloud to reinvent by embracing the power of data analytics, all the intelligence that can come out of that for different business units, different roles across the company. You can see the kinds of challenges they have here. You can see some of the outcomes they're after. He's going to talk to you about how many users they have and what kinds of use cases they got going and how they got there. Let's hear from Josef Wiehauser at BMW.
Our goals were actually comprised of 2 aspects. First of all, make our internal processes more efficient and effective on the basis of data. Secondly, enhance our customers' experience by using data inside and outside the vehicle. And we actually brought together a set of data scientists and engineers to work on really concrete use cases to discover what can be done based on ML principles. Well, we actually had a 2-fold strategy. First of all, we started hiring software engineering graduates with really a fresh mindset and an affinity to working with data. And we've started to create teams around these people in order to build up teams with a strong business mentality. Secondly, we actually started to embark on internal trainings to educate our existing workforce. We have used, as mentioned, trainings, certifications, but most importantly, and this has been really a successful journey for us, collaborating with other team members on the basis of pull request reviews. And concretely, here is what we have done. In the first phase, we have set up a bootstrap team that drive the platform's development, data products, and use cases. In the second phase, we have split the teams and defined clear interfaces and responsibilities, allowing the teams to independently grow and scale. In the third phase, we are now taking this even further and beginning to slice and dice the platform's components via a modular and open source architecture, which allows other teams to be invited and to actually co-create the platform. Today, we have arrived at roughly 5 petabytes with more than 300 use cases and more than 10,000 data engineers and scientists that actually use our platform from both business and IT.
Thank you, Josef. Thanks to the BMW team and our partners, Boston Consulting Group. Let's give a round of applause for Josef right now. Did you hear at the end? He said 10,000 users who are data engineers and data scientists across the business with these 300 use cases that they're using to drive decisions all over the place. I loved what he said, though, about the people and teams part of this, that second key to success, where he talked about setting up these cross-discipline or cross-functional teams. He called them diverse teams, setting them up in an independent way so they can move quickly, grow fast, scale, and go to get their results. And then how they're supporting them with this data hub platform so that data sources from all over the company come together in new ways, and then they can unlock that insight for all those users and all those use cases. It's really exciting to see that strategic an approach to unlock the power of data, get it out of those old applications, get it into this data hub platform, and then turn it loose on innovation and reinvention as they respond to all those opportunities and challenges in automotive. So thank you very much to Josef and the BMW team. Let's go to the next story. We talked first about Autodesk and their work reinventing their business. Then second, we talked about BMW. And here's this one I like, 3M, 109 years old, 60,000 products. And you can see here their challenges. You're going to hear from David Bellis, the VP of Global Infrastructure. You can see their challenges include aging corporate infrastructure. And he's going to tell you all about that. But with our partners, Cognizant and Accenture, we've been working with the team there to really get after, to unlock their situation with technology and get them in a position where they can continue to innovate as they have for 109 years, but doing it at a higher speed, greater scale, so they can continue to grow. So let's hear from David and the team and hear how they've been going about it, the how of their reinvention at 3M.
We have spent the last 20 years migrating and consolidating 3M's global data centers down to just a few. These data centers run and support almost all aspects of 3M's global operations and customers. As it turns out, one of these 3M global data centers has reached its facility's end of life and needs to be replaced. First, we are transforming to eliminate the risk of an end-of-life data center. But more importantly, and second, we are enabling modernization, 3M global reach, scalability, flexibility, and technology innovation for the future. A great example of outcomes is related to the amount of time it takes to build a new environment. We went from weeks or months to build new footprints to minutes. And we also have greatly reduced our recovery time and recovery point objectives for our business stakeholders. To date, we've migrated over 3,300 systems, 3,500 databases, and 1,700 3M applications in our first 12 months. These have included critical customer-facing, manufacturing, and ERP production workloads. Our journey is a multi-year program, but we're on track to deliver on schedule, on budget, and as promised. We've implemented many system performance management metrics, and our migrations to date have achieved or exceeded all business and customer expectations.
Thank you, David. Let's hear a round of applause for 3M and the team there, our partners, Cognizant and Accenture. Really exciting to hear what they're doing. You hear what he said in just 12 months, his first 12 months, where they started out with a migration. They started thinking about, let's do this end-of-life data center, let's get that solved. But when they did it, they also modernized. They also set themselves up for future innovation because of the speed they've achieved in their ability to set up what he called those footprints, those development environments for teams across 3M, where they can get those things in minutes and get them going within guardrails and make sure that they're doing it in a secure and compliant way within 3M, but turning a bunch of teams loose. I want to make sure also that you caught the part where he said the kinds of systems they've moved in this first 12 months, customer-facing systems, manufacturing systems, ERP production, that's SAP there at 3M. So they've gotten that much done and 50% plus in just 12 months and now impacting the 1,000 employees plus across their company. This is the kind of thing you can do too, and it's just in 12 months time, and it's because they got focused on the scope, they got the team organized, and off they go. So nice job to David and the team at 3M. Let's go to our fourth story. This is another reinvention. Again, Cisco, a product company, networking gear, historically, sold through a channel historically, made a great business, 80s, 90s, 2000s, but then they decided to reinvent and shift up the stack, bring in software, bring in services, bring in things that they do directly for customers in all different segments of their business. So they've launched this initiative they call the Customer Experience, or CX initiative. So the Cisco CX initiative is, in one way, sort of brand new in the sense that they're reinventing that business model. In other ways, they had to move some systems over and modernize and re-architect those systems. But you're going to hear from Justin Waite, as the head of cloud operations, how important that operations piece is as well. So go ahead, Justin. Let's hear your story there at Cisco.
So what we did first is we took what we had in the traditional data center and we started to look at a cloud migration. As we did that, we were really using that as an MVP and a proof of concept. Once we learned more about what skill sets we had, how the tools were going to change the way we work, we really started to completely redesign and overhaul everything into a true microservice architecture. So we have a strong product management team, and we partnered with them as we took a look across the portfolio and looked at what products we have that have the most usage. And we prioritized those first. So it was a pretty traditional, what has the biggest impact to the customer, what is going to put us in the path for success, and we've just been executing on that vision. So I would say we're probably 50% of the way through our application modernization. As I mentioned before, we're going to a true microservices strategy. This has been something that has been somewhat difficult to break up, but once we've defined and created the microservice that we're going to pull out and migrate, it's actually been great from a velocity standpoint. I would say the most time spent is in the analysis and then the architecture to move it over and kind of the redoing it. But once it gets over that hump, we see incredible acceleration and velocity and how quickly we're able to iterate on those as microservices. I would say we are absolutely more innovative and more agile. I think we've had to change some of our methodology to support this, but we are now feeling fast and pushing forward at a pace that it's pretty hard to keep up with, honestly. But it is the right way to go about this, and it is letting us spread the work out across many teams. Really had to stand up a kind of FinOps team that's going in and taking a look at all the different configurations, all the different instance sizes, if stuff's sitting idle, if stuff's maxed out, and looking at the best way to make those changes so that we're spending smarter with our investment in AWS. Thanks a lot. Justin Waite, Cisco.
Thanks to Justin and the team at Cisco. Great story there. I like Justin's wrap up too. Justin and the team have deployed this CX program platform out to 3 global regions in just 9 months. So they're getting a lot done. In fact, how did he describe it? He said it's hard to keep up with their pace now, I think is the way he described it. And at first, he cut across all these 4 success factors. He talked about their goal and what they're trying to do. He talked about the people part of it and arranging the teams. He talked about the re-architecture that they're doing regarding microservices and so forth. But what he really focused on there at the end was about bringing in his financial operations team to get them involved in helping him control, manage, govern the operations in a cloud-based operating model. And so that's that 4th pattern that we're seeing a lot. Companies like Cisco who are bringing those FinOps teams in, who are bringing procurement and legal in early to explain how do we buy in this environment or this model? How do we manage? How do we operate in this environment? What are the processes, policies, and tools that we use to manage this now? He's a great example of where they pulled that in earlier, and it's helping them to go as fast as he described. So thank you very much to the team at Cisco and the CX program there. Now, I told you that there were those 4 stories from those 4 international leaders and how they're reinventing their businesses using the cloud. And then I teased a little bit that says that we're going to look at an Amazon story. I'm really proud of the innovations that happened at Amazon. Last year, the story we shared was about sustainability. This year, we're going to talk about this notion of autonomous retailing. And we're going to talk about a solution and a service that we call Just Walk Out technology. Just Walk Out. Pretty simple. At Amazon, we have been developing this in a number of different formats, and we're just now deploying it at a grocery chain that Amazon purchased a few years ago called Whole Foods Market. Whole Foods is in many cities in the United States. And in working with Whole Foods on this Just Walk Out technology, we're actually going to be deploying it in public in the first quarter of next year to 2 stores and learning a lot from that. What is Just Walk Out technology? This 1, 2, 3 makes it pretty simple. Here's what happens. As you enter the facility, whatever that retail format is, you identify yourself with an app, with your palm scan, if you choose to do it that way, or a credit card. So once you're identified, you step into the store, you begin to shop just like any other retail experience. You shop and pull things off the shelf, put them into your bag or your virtual shopping cart. You put them back, you decide you want to change your mind and get something else. You walk to a different part of the store, you get different kinds of products. And as you move through the store, as those products are moving, those products are being tracked by computer vision and sensors and machine learning to make sure that we're tracking your virtual shopping cart and that we're managing that experience very seamlessly for you. What do you do then? You just walk out. You literally go out and there's no cashier process at all. Very quickly you get your invoice, your receipt on your phone or in your account. You can look at it over your phone. And I'll tell you from personal experience, I've used this probably 100 times in a retail environment, and it's been accurate every single time. There's been no issue. And you know, it's a weird feeling when you just walk out. I don't know how many of you have done it, but you feel like you're stealing something. There's nobody waiting there to get your payment and allow you to leave the store. You just walk out. And so it's a pretty revolutionary reinvention of the retail experience, but it helps the retail consumer in addition to the retail operator. And so I want to talk to you now by using a real live example that I'm excited to report is right here in Las Vegas. Just up a couple blocks, a couple Vegas blocks, is Resorts World, the new property up here just north of where we are at the Venetian. Resorts World has some hotels and retail formats that are there. And I'd like to bring up the team that's working on that and have them tell you about what Just Walk Out means at Resorts World. Let's go to that video.
The analogy I like to use for Just Walk Out technology is that it works like self-driving cars. So we use a combination of computer vision, sensor fusion, and deep learning to provide a checkout-free shopping experience, and it's also highly accurate. What a shopper does when they approach the gate is they enter or tap their credit card on the gate. The gate opens and you walk into the store and shop like you normally would. When a shopper's in the store and they take items from the shelf, we're putting it into a virtual cart. The same happens when a shopper returns something to the shelf. We take it out of the virtual cart. Once that's done and they walk out, that virtual cart is what's charged to that shopper.
I feel Amazon Just Walk Out technology empowers the guests and puts them in control of the shopping experience. Resorts World's always looking for the most technologically advanced systems, so really the choice was easy to work with Just Walk Out technology by Amazon, and the technology's unbeatable.
You just walk in, get your stuff, you don't have to wait in line, it's less hassle. It was very easy and convenient not having to go up to a cash register and wait in line and just kind of go in and out really quickly.
We support third-party stores through our Just Walk Out technology business. So we help our customers understand the technology, implement that technology, and support it for the life of the technology. So we bring the people, the processes, and the training necessary to our customers in order to make them fully successful with our solution and to enable checkout-free shopping in their stores. This is why we're doing this. It's because we want to make the shopping experience effortless.
All right, round of applause for Jennifer Mall and Michael Pinal at Resorts World. My colleague Jennifer Mall there works at Amazon. She leads that business, and I really liked her smile there at the end where she said, we just want to make it effortless. And you can see she really cares about the business and the retailer experience and the consumer experience that they're reinventing. And it's pretty classic, turn it upside down kind of look at things. And I've told you that I've experienced it personally before, and we wanted to show you my receipt from lunch the other day. And here's what it looks like. It comes down to me on my phone. Pretty basic lunch there, a sandwich, some chips, and a drink. But what I find oddly interesting to me is on the receipt, it tells me my trip time in a store. I don't really manage to the second every day, but it tells me that trip time was 45 seconds. That was pretty cool. I have this kind of unhealthy competition now with a colleague in my office and see who can get through and get our lunch faster in this same store. She says she's down to 21 seconds. I'm not sure I believe her yet. I haven't been with her when she did it. I don't know how she does it. I don't know if she runs or pushes people out of the way or what she does, but she's showing me 21 seconds on her receipt, so I got to look into that and see how she's doing that. Great accuracy on those. So here's the recap on that. Jennifer Mall, the director at Amazon, her link to her profile is there in the upper right of this slide. But you can see they're all after that effectiveness for the consumer. But then you also got to think about the retail operator. You heard him talk there about how they wanted to maximize the productivity out of that retail operation, at the same time they wanted to dazzle their customer and their experience and make it effortless. And that's what's happening there at Resorts World. But of course, they had to do it by getting the right people involved. They had to set a clear mission and goal. They had to innovate in new ways that no one had thought of before, and then be able to operate it not only sort of in the cloud, but the physical implementation now in a retail store like that, integrating with the payment systems, integrating with the inventory systems, all these sensors and all the computer vision that goes into it coming together in a format like that is pretty cool. So I encourage you to check it out just up the street, and then watch for it around the world. We announced a few different partnerships. Starbucks in New York City has a format where they're doing this Just Walk Out. And in fact, just today, Sainsbury's, who's a big retailer in the UK, just announced their use of Just Walk Out. And then I told you with Whole Foods where we're going to be doing it here in the US a little bit more. You're also going to see it in airports and other places where people are moving quickly in this retailing format where there's no people involved, autonomous retailing. Thought you might find that kind of interesting. I think you're going to see a lot more of it in various forms around the world in different places. So, what have we done? We've looked at the current state and how you get to the desired state. We've looked at these patterns, identified these 4 key success factors, and all these stories that you saw, all these leaders touched on different aspects of these 4 things, a little bit more here and there, but they had those in common. They're very different businesses. They're reinventing in different ways. Their triggers or their motivations are very different, whether they're thinking about connecting with their customer when they used to go through a channel like Cisco, or they're thinking about automotive, where they've got a whole new set of pressures on them that are coming from different insurgents that are changing the automotive business. They think of 3M, who's got to get after their costs, but also has to go faster with their product catalog. And then Justin over at Cisco, all the rest of them, Autodesk going from product to platform, just fantastic to see that kind of innovation, that kind of reinvention from established companies who I believe if they keep doing what they're doing, they are going to reach that upper right to continue to lead in their industry. I told you about some sessions later in the week. I'd encourage you to think about these 4 priorities as you map and prioritize where you spend your time the rest of this week and what you do when you go home. Here's another thing I wanted to offer for you as you leave, as you head out, is a way to think about this. The prior illustration was very linear. It kind of said, start here, go through these steps, and get up to this step. But obviously, that's not how things happen these days. It's much more iterative than that. And so iterations follow a cycle. And at Amazon, for reinvention, we use a construct that we refer to as the flywheel. I don't know if you've heard that in reading about Amazon or hearing about how we go about this reinvention, but the idea is start with something small, get that improvement started, get that value proposition proven, and get around the turn and reinvent and continuously improve. So let's take our 4 success factors we've been talking about this afternoon and lay them into a flywheel. Top left, get those goals straight in business terms, get the leadership aligned. Top right, get the people and the climate set up and get the training in place and get them going. Identify those improvements, those prioritizations that you want to get after, and then get that right mix of migration, modernization, and innovation. Make sure you're pulling the operations teams in, get that cloud operating model established in the bottom left, and then get through a cycle of innovation, assess it using data and metrics, figure out what you want to improve next, and turn the crank again. A flywheel is literally a wheel that turns, generates energy, and then that energy gets fed back to have it go faster to generate more energy, and you keep going faster with more energy and more strength, more value created. And this flywheel is a illustration. I'm not suggesting that this is something you should take home and use the way it's written. Your flywheel will be different than this one. Your mileage may vary. This is something, an effort on my part to remind you that this is iterative process. And as you heard in the customer stories here, many of them were really hooked on having lots of teams working in parallel very independently. Once you're set up with that good management and governance, you can turn lots of teams loose, thousands of teams loose through their own flywheel, going relatively independently. And that's going to yield a whole bunch of innovation, experimentation, invention on their way to reinventing the whole business. So a flywheel concept hopefully would be useful to you as well. I told you we're going to leave you with some other resources that offer you some materials, some assets, some tooling. We've been talking about a lot of concepts here for this hour, but in these links, you have a number of resources I want to describe for just a minute. On the left, the AWS Enterprise Portal has things like more case studies, reference architectures, solution directory. It's got a whole bunch of things that help you get your arms around all this opportunity in the enterprise space. The second one I'm pretty excited about, our prescriptive guidance catalog. Here at this event and interacting with customers around the world, I often am told, hey, Todd, these AWS building blocks are great, but how do we put them together? Come tell us prescriptively what's the best way for us to architect and implement these building blocks from AWS. And that prescriptive guidance catalog is our response to that. That's been up for 2 or 3 years, and we're filling that in with very detailed specifications for how to, prescriptive specifications for how to implement it in the very best way. Something we announced last week is the third item here, the Cloud Adoption Framework from AWS, or CAF. It's version 3. We've been doing this since about 8 years ago, where we've been collecting all the tasks and deliverables for all the work streams that our customers are going through. Put them in a common structure. There are about 6 major work streams. There are tasks and deliverables in each. There are epics and detailed delivery kits inside each. For many of you who are just getting started, I'd recommend the Cloud Adoption Framework to just go look at the layout of the work and make sure all those work streams are addressed in your plan. Reuse some of the pieces there to get you down the path faster. That Cloud Adoption Framework is our collection of the how part of all this transition, and we're offering it up to you and have been for 8 years now, and we just updated it last week, so I encourage you to take a look at that. And then last but not least, the well-architected framework has been around, again, for about 10 years, and there's a bunch of automation related to that to help make sure that your architecture is secure, that it's reliable, that it's scalable. And now, with this latest announcement around the management and governance lens, the management and governance lens was just added or announced last week. And I think I told you that there's a session on it later in this week. Bill Vass, who's going to go through that management and governance or Ready, Set, Operate presentation, and he's going to address that in some more detail too. But these QR codes will get you to that, those set of resources, and that you can send off to your teams or you can put to work in your leadership efforts as you get back to work next week. Hopefully you'll find these useful. Really appreciate the time and attention that we've had here. Let's recap what we did. I told you that we were going to set out to identify the best practices, those patterns and practices that represent the key success factors. Got the big 4 today. We did that, and then we heard from how various leaders like you are applying it. We heard their stories. I thought they were great stories, and in fact, I'd like to offer or challenge that maybe next year some of you might want to have your stories up here to be featured in a similar way to show the kind of progress you're making in the time from today to just 12 months from now. So that's an open invitation. And then the takeaways of these resources and getting yourself in position to lead. Get yourself in a position to go now, go big and go fast. You're going to hear from some to say, you know, you can just incrementally kind of grow out of from your data center into the cloud and you'll do it smoothly. There won't be a lot of disruption. And I'll submit that thinking incrementally will get you incremental results. And I'll submit that thinking incrementally today isn't going to be a winning strategy. There are competitors and alternatives around your business that are taking big steps, bold steps. You are too. We're there with you. We can help you. You aren't the first one to do it. You've heard many stories here. There are many more. And you've got a chance to be out in front if you continue to go hard at it now, go big, and go fast, and we'll be there to support you. So last, I'd like to thank our presenters from Autodesk, 3M, BMW, Cisco, and our partners there, Boston Consulting Group, Tech Systems, Cognizant, Accenture, many more. And these are links to these people's profiles and mine as well. Love to have you give us feedback, what you liked or didn't like about the stories and the resources that are available. I'll be here all week. I'll be here after the show today, and I'll probably come back around down here if anyone would like to grab me here. But very much appreciate you prioritizing your time to come to this session, this track, and invest it this way. I have customers like you tell me all the time, you know, Todd, every cloud provider, every IT provider invites me to their conference. I can't go to them all, so I don't go to any, or I'll just go to one. Well, we really appreciate that you picked AWS reInvent and prioritize that high on your list. So with that, I'll ask you for a favor to go ahead and fill out the survey at the end here. We take your feedback seriously. We're all a little competitive about it, so go ahead and give us a high mark if you think we earned it today. And above all, have a great week. Be safe, go big, go fast, and go now. Thank you very much.